I want to welcome everybody to my fifth study for this camp. Study number 12. Let's pray. Holy God, we thank you that through your grace and your guidance we can have a clearer understanding of end time prophecy. We thank you for the great work that Miller did on our behalf. A normal individual that was willing to sacrifice their life for us. As we consider all that he has done on our behalf, may we consider the work that you have given to us to complete. And help us to be faithful to that calling. Amen. We're looking at Revelation chapter 17 primarily. And we have been able to develop a structure. And that structure is based upon a line that has 3 waymarks to it. We've labelled that as past, present and future. And that line was created from the framework that's given to us in chapter 17. Which, by the way, is the same framework that's given in chapter 13. In doing that, we can see, hopefully, if we call this the beginning and the end, a panoramic view, and in addition to that, what I'm going to call a dispensational view. We've done this enough times now that people should be quite familiar with it. This is the present. And the reason why this structure becomes significant is because the events at the beginning of the line, which are identified by the end of that line, need to be understood clearly, because we end up starting at 1 and moving forward. And in order to do that successfully, you need to be clear on what's happening today. You can take this structure that we have on the board and you'll see it's exactly what is happening in Miller's history. And you'll see that he follows this methodology. He uses this principle or this technique. If there are no questions, I'll continue. Okay, no questions. Good. I gave you a Spirit of Prophecy quote yesterday. Great Controversy 605. And that again was an inspired passage that follows this same structure. We have to begin at the end, the third way mark. When you look at the third way mark, you see certain events happening that have very specific characteristics. And those characteristics in that version of the story of the Great Controversy, the story of the end of the world, are what will be used to define or control this line, this history. I assume no questions? No one say anything? Good. So depending upon what passage or portion of inspiration you read will determine the perspective of the story. Because all the stories are the same. We'll stop there. But they give different perspectives of the entire controversy, the panoramic view, and the end of the world. What you'll see in chapters 13 and 17, because it's really easy to see there, that both chapters are given to us from the perspective of number 2. No questions? Good. So, what we discussed yesterday was that Adventism, because of their understanding of end time prophecy, they would focus on chapter 13. The movement, us, because of our perspective of end time prophecy, our focus is chapter 17. The reason why we're going to look at chapter 17 is because we can see there the rise and fall of nations. You can see similar issues in chapter 13. And as I said, you could use either one to prove the point depending on how you interpret these two chapters. So we're going to use 17 and we'll pick up the word Babylon which we've already discussed. All good? So if you were to go to chapter 13, you would pick up the image of the beast. The problem with that imagery, we can find all the information that we need from both chapters 13 and 17. But each version of the same story gives a slightly different perspective. We've all read these two chapters, and hopefully we have a familiarity with them now. So if we were to turn to chapter 13, we'll go to verse 7. There is war that's being promulgated, that's being made against the saints. Verse 6, there is blasphemy that's being leveled against God. And the person who is committing this blasphemy is the one that's making war against saints. The person that does this blasphemy and persecutes the saints and brings them into captivity, they themselves will suffer retribution that's similar to their crime. It's verse 10. So if we were just to think about those words that we've just read, and you're familiar with the book of Daniel, you could see that these words that we've just read fit exactly with the story of the experience of God's people when they're taken captive by Babylon. We could go on in the chapter. Speaks about fire, speaks about punishing people. And as we go further into the verses, speaks about an image of the beast. And that beast is the power that we spoke about just a few minutes ago that committed blasphemy and that was persecuting God's people. And again, if you understood the beast in that context, and you understand what an image is, it's a mannequin or a statue. Again, you can go into the book of Daniel and you'd go to chapters 2 and 3. So if you were to read Revelation 13, you can quite easily go to Daniel chapter 3 to see its original fulfillment. And if you took the time and you had the skill, you could even see a fulfillment of verse 18. The number 666. So this framework of chapter 13 would be the theme of this line. And therefore, you'd go to the beginning, Daniel chapter 3, and what would you see in that story as you read it? You'd go to the beginning of the chapter and you'd notice that you need to connect it to chapter 2. When you connect the two chapters together, you understand what's happening in chapter 3. There's a kingdom, a government that is making war against God, which is a blasphemous act. And even if you want to look at a more precise definition of blasphemy, you can still see that in this story. And this government, this power, because it can't touch God, is going to focus its ire upon God's people. And it will put God's people into two groups. Those who obey the government and those who obey God. So Daniel 3 is the story about an earthly government that is challenging God's authority and is going to turn its attention to those who claim to worship that God. Which we would call the saints, or the children or the people of Israel. That's what Adventists do. I want us to see how accurate it is what they're doing. There's a loud cry in that story. And when that cry happens, everybody is being tested. Whether they will obey the government or whether they will obey God. And there's a declaration about what the conditions of life and death are. A life and death message. There's a command that's given, which is a law. So there's a life and death testing message. We can take all of that from Daniel 3. And even though many people are involved, the story focuses upon the saints or those who worship God. So I want us to understand how accurate Adventism is. When it brings that story to the end of the world and develops an ideology of a Sunday law testing message. Because tucked in all of that theology and methodology they're going to teach you that the beast, they're going to teach you that the beast isn't Nebuchadnezzar, because we're in the present, and that present beast is going to be the papacy, whose mark of authority is Sunday sacredness. That's the fifth dispensation, which is right at the beginning of the chapter. So we've got all the elements that we've been discussing, and you can develop a robust Sunday law message. Any questions? All good? So, question? Oh, we need a mic. Put your hand up so they can see who it is. It's Tato back there. Go ahead. Not yet.
So I wanted to ask if when you say Adventism, are you speaking about the Adventism which is in the present today? Or are you speaking about the Adventism that is in the Millerite history? When you say the fifth, the fifth kingdom.
Remember when I said we're in the fifth kingdom? It's not about the Millerites or Adventism. It's about from the perspective of the chapter. John is 2,000 years separated from chapter 13. Maybe 1,900. 100 less. And yet John is there. So it's not so much about the literalness of it, it's about the perspective that the chapter affords us. Did that help?
Not really.
I knew it didn't. Chapter 13. It's given at a specific point in time. You believe that, or at least you accept it. You might not know what that point in history is, but this is the perspective from the author, which is John. Are you okay with that?
I am.
Because John says, I, John, stood on the sand of the sea and I saw something. And you know that John wasn't alive when that event happened. It's not number 2. Number 2 is nearly 2,000 years in the future. But John is going to give this story from the perspective that he is on the sand of the sea. He's moved nearly 2,000 years into the future. So when we were talking, and I said, the present that we are in. I tried to clarify several times that you actually have to move back a couple of years, because we're not at number 2 any longer in real life, as much as John wasn't at number 2 in real life. John has to be transported into the future, and we have to be transported into the past to both be at number 2. Still not any better?
It's fine. I can understand now.
Okay. So if this is number 2 and John is here, we are here. So John has to move forward in time and we have to move backward in time. So whether you're a Millerite or a modern Adventist, it ends up being the same thing. But to try to answer your question directly, there's another concept which we will borrow, which is, I think, where your question probably lies. So this may not confuse you, it may confuse others. Because we've just spiritualized all of this. Everybody agree with that? Have we spiritualized it? So Tato's question was, when we're here at number 2, are we really here in real life? Not like John, pretend. And the real life people that would be at number 2 would be Millerites, and the ones that weren't really there were the Adventists. So this is really there? Question. Yes for the Millerites, no for the Adventists. And really there means real life. So I'm sure at least Tato gets that, because that was his question. Any questions from anybody? Nope. What he's skillfully done, if you have noticed, or even more skillfully if you haven't noticed, is that he's added another layer, a necessary one. Because it's okay to do something that's fake, like John moving in time, or us moving back in time, which is not real because no one moves in time. You move in your imagination because that's how we've been framing this. So now Tato is asking, he didn't frame it this way. Is there a dynamic where the person who is reading the story, you, are really alive at number 2 in real life? And the answer is, Tato can give us the answer. Are you really alive, Tato? It didn't come out on the mic, but yes. And that's why it has to be in that dynamic, a Millerite. Can't be an Adventist. Has to be Miller, can't be Ellen White. Because Ellen White is like a we here. She has to look backwards and pretend to be at number 2. But Miller was living at number 2 when it happened. He sees and experiences it. Really okay with that? And so, if that's true, that there's this pretend view, we won't call it fake. Let me rephrase that. Not pretend view, pretend experience. There's also a real experience. We okay with that? So, if we have a short devotional thought or meditational thought, maybe you can take a pause. Because what's so sad is that someone like Elder Jeff didn't have a real experience of number 2. Where would Elder Jeff be when we look at number 2? So if you see the board, we've got John and we. So I'm going to redraw that. Call that 2 and we'll call that A and B. When it comes to Elder Jeff, was Elder Jeff A or B? Put your hands up if it's A. Put your hands up if it's B. And 90% don't know what I'm talking about. Which is pretty sad, to be honest. So Elder Jeff was A. He was never at 2. He could only imagine it. And that's really sad. Because everyone in this room has lived and experienced number 2. We're past number 2. And everybody's experienced it in real time. And just think of the blessing that you've received in comparison to his loss. as we would see it. And perhaps what's even sadder than him not experiencing it, that every single one of you has, and most of you aren't even aware of it. And I think that's even sadder than his life experience. To having walked through number 2 and not even know it. Okay, so that's the end of our devotional thought. Let's get back to our job. So, if we go to Revelation 13, we have a very specific perspective of Daniel 3. Which is the great controversy. Satan versus God. And you might say it's all a proxy, but that's what that dynamic is. So, Revelation 17 really is not that story. So if we can see, we'll put chapter 13. If we can see that chapter 13 is this perspective, that it's the great controversy, the war between Satan and God. Who's Satan? Shout out. One person. Who shouted? Nebuchadnezzar. Catherine? Okay. So you okay with Nebuchadnezzar? Catherine, who's God?
I don't know.
Daniel 3. Nebuchadnezzar's
It's
fighting.
Nebuchadnezzar versus God's people. The three worthies.
3 boys, yeah?
Yep.
We'll put Hebrews. Everybody okay with that? So you see it's the great contrary. That's why Adventists do it this way. Chapter 13, Daniel 3, really works well. So now we're in chapter 17. So what we've seen here, we'll call it the theme. So chapter 17 now. What's the theme? Is this a theme about the great controversy? 2 kingdoms antagonistic to one another, making war for the supremacy. Put your hands up if it's yes. Put your hands up if it's no. Okay, so the no's win. It's not a story about the great controversy. Satan's kingdom and God's kingdom, the rise and fall of kingdoms, nations coming and fighting with each other. Revelation 17. The rise and fall of nations, kingdoms, nations fighting against each other. And it all sounds seductively the same. So those of you who participated, the majority said no. No was the answer. And the question was, is this a story of the great controversy? So if it's not that, what is it? Because chapter 13 is the rise and fall of nations. And so is chapter 17. At that level, they're identical. So, what would you want to call this theme? Anybody want to venture? This is new, we haven't done this. So it may take us a couple of iterations to get to an answer that we're comfortable with, that makes sense. Everyone who said no, tell me what the theme is then, if it's not that. Cobus?
That will be the internal struggle of the nation. There will be the internal struggle of the kingdom.
I got internal, fight, and you said the kingdom, singular. Which kingdom is that? In chapter 17. So chapter 17, not just a specific verse, the theme of the chapter.
Is the rise and fall of kingdoms.
So I've got that on the left hand side there. I gave that to us. And the reason I gave it is because it's identical to chapter 13. But that rise and fall of nations in 13 I want to call it power struggle. A power struggle between Satan's kingdom and God's kingdom. And so I can equally legitimately put power struggle for chapter 17 as well. So what you need to provide is a theme. And it's not Satan v God.
Then it's between different kingdoms.
So if I said between different kingdoms, I could say the same thing about 13. So the theme would be identical then. So we have to, so this is for all of you, we have to come up with a phrase or a statement that makes it unique to 17 and different to 13. So as you can see, it's perhaps not that straightforward when we're doing it live with no pre-information. Anyone else? Besides Tato? I don't know who, I can't see who that is. Go ahead.
We could say implosion.
What does implosion mean?
It means a structure itself being destroyed without any external factors.
Without external factors.
Yes, the reason of the implosion is internal. The reason of its destruction is internal.
Anyone else?
Isn't it the?
I don't know. Yeah.
It's title. It's nations against nations.
That's 13.
Maybe
You've got to frame it in a different way that makes it specific to 17, not generic. Because Cobus will tell you that's what he just said, what you just said.
Okay, can you please repeat your question again then?
Before I do that, anyone else who remembers my question, don't repeat my question, but answer it. Who wants to have a go?
I think it's the opposite of what is happening in Revelation 13, that is Satan's kingdom, self-destruction.
Satan's kingdom, self-destruction. Okay, so if Satan's kingdom self-destroys, is that what you said? Because that kind of sounds like implosion. What's the point of a stone? Why can't you just leave the statue to do its own thing and self-implode? That's for anybody who wants to have a go. I'm trying to think of a quote to help us. Without paraphrasing it. I can't remember the words, I'm going to paraphrase. Anyone else? Catherine?
I want to address your question, not his comment. Is that okay?
You going to answer my question?
Your question about the
Yep.
theme.
Remind us what the question is, because I think I've forgotten.
The question is, what could the theme be
Yep.
that's different in 17
Okay.
to 30?
So we're looking at the theme.
In 13, we've got Nebuchadnezzar against the three boys.
Donc dans le chapitre 13, nous avons, le chapitre 3, nous avons Nebuchadnezzar contre les trois garçons.
Perhaps 17 is not so much Nebuchadnezzar. We could, it's still the three boys, I think, but maybe the opposing team is actually everyone else who bows. So the people, the other leaders.
Won't translate that because I wanted to stop you.
Yep.
Don't do this. It's this that's the theme.
Donc ne fais pas le thème avec le Nebuchadnezzar, les trois garçons, mais le thème c'est Satan versus.
Because there's no Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 13.
Parce qu'au chapitre 13, il n'y a pas de Nebuchadnezzar.
It's Satan v God
C'est Satan contre Dieu.
and then we went to the chapter 3 version to sort of demonstrate that.
Et ensuite, nous sommes allés dans le chapitre 3 pour le démontrer.
So we need something for 17,
Donc, il nous faut quelque chose dans 17.
and then
Ensuite,
whoever does it will tell us the Daniel chapter 3 version of that theme.
et ensuite, on donnera la version de Daniel 3 de ce thème.
So all you need to do is work backwards from what you said.
Donc, tout ce que tu as dit, c'est de remonter vers ce que tu as dit.
If you're happy with that answer,
Tu es d'accord avec ce
I want a 17 version of it.
Nous sommes dans la version 17.
I'll try making up a name for it.
Donc, je vais donner un autre nom.
Before you do that,
Avant que tu ne le fasses,
remember
rappelle-toi,
that if you're going to use chapter 3 to do your work for you, you could enter dangerous ground. Because 17 is supposed to control the theme, not 3.
Maybe I won't try it, or I can have a stab in the dark.
No one can hear what you're saying there, Catherine.
Oh,
Sorry.
I might pass and have a bit more time to think.
Great. Okay, I found the passage. Should know where it was, obviously. Who's got the hand up? Liberty?
I was thinking of the phrase like progression of Satan's kingdom from
alors je réfléchissais à une question, oui, question,
Progression of Satan's kingdom, full stop.
la progression du royaume de
Okay, so we got it. Testimonies to Church, Volume 9, page 11. So, if it's progression of Satan's kingdom,
royaume de Satan.
is Satan's kingdom getting better or worse?
Est-ce que le royaume de Satan s'améliore ou
Better. There's no implosion. It's a refinement. Because yesterday, Satan's kingdom wasn't ready, prepared, able to win. So Satan is going to have various iterations or versions of their kingdom, its kingdom. I avoid saying his kingdom, which are going to be fit for purpose. So the kingdoms, the heads, if you want, are they getting better or worse? Better. We should have all shouted out better. They're getting better, stronger, faster in order to win the fight. 90. The agencies of evil are combining their forces and consolidating, not imploding. They are strengthening, not weakening, for the last great crisis. Great changes are soon to take place in the world, and the final movements will be rapid ones. We ignore all that. So, the rise and fall of nations kingdoms are all Satan's kingdoms. And the kingdoms are just getting better and better. So that by the time you get to the end, when the great crisis is about to happen, Satan's kingdom is at its apex, it's at its best, not its worst. So for the two people who conceptualized implosion, you need to be able to distinguish why I said implosion in a previous study in reference to a previous question compared to today's question or today's framework. So I'm not going to ask even if that makes sense, because I'm sure it's a bit much to grasp in one go. So I did see your hand, Tina, but I'm going to wait for a bit, if you can wait for a bit. Chapter 13. The beast, whoever that beast is, Satan, is making war against the saints or God's kingdom. That's what's on the board. Satan v. God. And chapter 17, progression of of Satan's kingdom. Because we're brainstorming, we could have other ones, combine them and come up with a really nice one. So I'll offer one. This is not any better or worse. Might be worse, but it's not better. So the rise and fall of nations is about preparation for war. So the story of Revelation 17 is about refinement, improvement, removing the dross. The dross is the waste product, the rubbish. So Babylon, literal Babylon, is dross, waste. It's not good. It's not good enough to accomplish the task. So you have to have Medo Persia. And so the story goes on until you get to the best kingdom. In reference to 17, it's the seventh one. Because all the kingdoms before were not fit for purpose. We could call them practice sessions. Satan was practicing on how to win the great controversy. Until he gets to the seventh, the final one that's capable of doing this work. Just see if I can find something. Yep. So we'll go to Matthew 24:24. put this in parenthesis. What's Matthew 24:24? Why have I gone there? On the plains of Dura, it might be guess, but I'm pretty sure that there are more than 3 wise men, Hebrew wise men. There are more than that. Most of them, what happens to them? Using the language in Matthew 24. Most of them are deceived. The ones that aren't deceived are whom? In the verse. The very elect. The very elect didn't get deceived on the plains of Dura. So you keep on getting a better kingdom until you get to the place where you're pretty sure that you're going to deceive the very elect. Now, anybody got questions? Your questions all answered, Tina? Great. Sorry, Liberty.
So if you can help,
Sorry?
if you can demonstrate how the progression of Satan's kingdom.
Is this a question?
Yes. So I want the clarity from Daniel 3, how the progression of Satan's kingdom is shown.
Hope everybody understands the question. Who's going to answer the question? Catherine? Sorry? No, go.
Most people voted for the image.
Tato? He had his hand up. Tato had his hand up.
No, mine is a question.
Okay, so don't put your hands up if you've got questions. Only answers.
Can you repeat your question?
Who's got their hand up? You got your hand up, Tina, to answer the question? Right. You don't know. You're not answering. Okay, go over there. First, repeat the question.
The question is, where in Daniel 3 do we see the perfection of Satan's kingdom?
The perfection. You said perfection?
Yeah.
And your answer is?
It's in the image itself. It's made from gold from head to toe. Unlike the image we have.
Okay, that's enough of an answer. Thank you. Anyone else? So the answer is, you don't do that. You don't go to Daniel 3 to find any answers. It's a failed mission if you're doing that. You go to Revelation 17 and you find a theme there. What's on the board was just done straight out of 17. When we compared it to 13, we may have stumbled initially, but it's clear that this is what that story is about. It's about, the theme of 17 is about having Satan's kingdom being perfect and ready for war. So, if we've done that, and now we go to chapter 3, what are we looking for? Please repeat. Now what are we looking for? I knew that wouldn't help. I did it deliberately, sorry. What are we looking for? The rise and fall of nations. And we want to see how Satan's kingdom is going to be refined. The process of refinement. Are we all good with that? So, in Revelation 17, how many kingdoms are doing that? The refining process. Liberty, how many? 7. These are 7 separate individual nations. We can't do that. What we do is what's on the board. The progression of Satan's kingdom. Its refinement. Its improvement. Removal of dross. So we take it at that level and go to Daniel 3. The first thing you see in Daniel 3 is how many nations? Justina, shout out. 1. So what we know by going from 17, which gives us the theme of the line. So we're at number 3, which is Revelation 17, and the theme of that is new kingdoms better than the past. Yep. And we know there's 7 of them. So we'll put a new kingdom that's better than the past. I've corrected the wording illegally, because you wouldn't know that until you do it a couple of times. Yep. So then you go to number 1, Daniel 3. Can't remember. Justina just said there's only one kingdom or one nation. So now what you're going to see is that there's going to be some refinement, but it's not the rise and fall of 2 separate kingdoms or nations. Because it's only one kingdom. So if we were to stop there, what that's teaching us is the theme of perfecting Satan's kingdom, because this is all about Satan's kingdom, isn't it? It's not two satanic kingdoms like Babylon and Medo Persia. It's one. So what we have to see there, in order to fulfill the theme, is that singular nation, that singular kingdom, has to refine itself, has to get better, has to improve or get rid of the waste or the dross. So that's what we're going to see in Daniel 3. So Daniel 3 is a story of one kingdom, not two. And how many saints are there in Daniel 3 now? So I'll ask the question, I'll write down, how many saints? Answer? Someone said? Who said 3? I've got 3 and I got 0. Cobus, why did he say 0?
I actually said 3.
My question to you is, why did he say 0? Curtis, I know you said 3. I want you to tell me why he said 0, if you can. Tell me the name of one of the 3. I'll go ahead then.
Because now you're sitting in the Revelation 17, so we can't bring in the story of the 3 saints, because we're not. Because the theme is different.
Someone said this yesterday. Can you tell me the names of at least one of the boys? Shadrach. That's clearly the wrong answer, because you said that person's name was Hananiah. And Curtis said his name was Shadrach. Is that correct?
I'm not with you.
Too advanced?
Yes, for now.
Sorry?
Yes.
You got it?
No, I don't.
Okay. Hananiah, what, I don't know if the language is the right way. What name is that? What's the origin of Hananiah?
Hebrew.
Hebrew. That's a Hebrew person.
Correct.
And Shadrach is what kind of a person?
A Babylonian.
A Babylonian. So that's only 2 left. If we did the same thing, you'd have none left. The 3 Hebrews have been stripped of their nationality and they're now Babylonians. We'll see it's 0. None. So this is the same story of what we have here, the chapter 13 version, but now you don't have any saints. We knew that because there's only one kingdom, Satan's kingdom. So, is Shadrach part of Satan's kingdom? Who said no? Tato, you're at the bottom of the class. Yes, he's a Babylonian, serving the king, kissing the king's feet. Of course he's part of Satan's kingdom. So, someone says something else? So, in Revelation 14, speaking to all those Babylonians, what do you say to them? Who shouted that? What did you say? Come out of her. Shadrach, come out of Babylon. Because you're a Babylonian. Make sense? Not everybody in Babylon is bad. But this isn't a story about individual citizens. Because Shadrach isn't just a Babylonian. Who is he? His government. Yeah? So you've got the king government and you've got Shadrach government. And so this government, kingdom, needs to be better, be improved. And how do you do that? How do you improve the kingdom of Babylon? How do you improve the kingdom of Babylon? By removing the dross. Yes, yes. Oh, who's the dross? What's the name of the dross?
The Hebrew names.
No. There aren't any Hebrews. It's none. Chester just told us there's none. They're all Babylonians. The name of the dross?
I'm thinking Abednego. Shadrach.
We'll go with that one. Shadrach.
Yeah.
Shadrach is the dross, hindering the improvement and the refinement of the kingdom. This kingdom has to go in which direction? We're not talking about refinement or improvement. We're talking morally. Does this kingdom have to get better or worse in order to be more perfect? Does it have to become better or a worse kingdom? More good or more evil? Okay. So it has to become more evil. Shadrach is just too good. So we have to get rid of all the good people in the government, in the nation. Because these are rulers, they're not citizens. So to improve the kingdom, to get it ready for the end, because I don't know what's going to happen in this story. They have to get rid of all the good people so the kingdom can become more evil. And that's the story of chapter 3 from the perspective of Revelation 17. So now all you have to do, you're at 1, remember? We've got all the elements. Then we're going to be pulled back and forth in history. We don't know where. This. But we've got another version of this, which was this version in parenthesis. What's the difference between the one in parenthesis and this one? This one, you pretend to be at number 2. And this one, you're actually walking over the ground while it's being fulfilled. We are focused on version 2. We know the theme. We know the start. All the parameters. And so we believe we are where? Number 2. Walking on that ground. And all you need to do is open the newspapers. If you see the theme, if you see the characteristics of number 1, all of those being fulfilled, you know you're at number 2, and it defines what number 3 is. And all you need to do is put your seatbelt on and prepare for that race. Let's close with prayer. Holy God, we thank you that we can experience the fulfillment of Daniel chapter 3 in a way that many of us could never have imagined. We thank you for the great work that the Millerites did. Miller. We thank you for the great work that Adventists did. Ellen White. But we thank you for the great work that our own teachers have done to refine and distill all of that information so that we can get to a place that we understand the beginning of this line and we can see as we were walking the path of that second waymark that you gave us the privilege to experience that in real time. And we have experienced that, and we have arrived at number 3. We thank you for that privilege. In Jesus' name, amen.